So are you get more comfortable with this manifest? They all look the same. They are declarative, okay?
Yes, sir.
Not
Uh,
like they are that difficult right now. All right. So what did you do? Did you build the image? Or
I've built
somewhere you are
Docker
stuck?
image, but
Okay.
this config map and the deployment. I don't know which one exactly.
All right. So you build the image. Let me see. Let me start with your Nginx deployment. I don't know why you seem to have different kind of deployment here. I wish you could have
Yeah, that's
focused
where
on just the image. Clean up your environment. Oh, before you clean up, okay, you have Kubernetes, you have all right, go ahead and get kubectl get deployment. I'll know if I look at it. Kubectl get deployment and the namespace. The namespace is Nginx. I'll know what kind of deployment you deployed.
I deployed both of them because I
It's
wasn't sure.
fine. That's okay. That's okay. You did the best you could. So just check and make sure. All right, you only have one and nothing is ready. You see, Nginx deployment. So the question is, why is it that nothing is ready for you? Let's look at
Because
your.
the config map is not.
Mhm. Even if the
I don't know
config
which.
map is not working, so let's scroll down. Let me see your image on the
Is it for the?
deployment, Nginx deployment, the one that
I,
you open there. Config
okay, the
map.
image.
Yes, I want to see the image that you are using. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, so how come you don't have your image here? You see, this is what I have been telling students. Don't do, I mean, yes, is the right thing to do here, but when you have your environment like this, you're going to be confused. You see how your environments look like? You have so many things, we can't even know where to start. Let's do ls. So many things, we don't know where to start. Ls. Okay, so whew, I don't remember any file that has this kind of information. Okay,
Is it
so
the README?
now which folder are you in? Which folder are you in? You see, you are all mixed up. Okay, so now clean up your environment and have a brand new environment so that we know what to work with. Okay. I hope these are all the manifests. I mean, you have these manifests in the GitHub. So whether you clean them up, you can always get them up, okay? And you
Sure.
should,
Docker file.
yeah, Dockerfile is there. I gave it to you. But now we don't even know
Think
where we are because so many things in your environment. Okay. So to make
the
sure we are not confused, because we are confused now, you see, so many things. So go ahead and clean up your environment. We have to start from a clean shave. Right now, we don't know where to start. Can you see that?
Yeah, I know
Uh-huh.
the only issue is I don't know which of the deployment is correct and
All right,
config map.
wait. So, because you mix them. You see the issue? If you don't want to delete them, there is something else you can do. Go on the terminal and create a folder. If you don't want to delete what you have, just go on the terminal and create a folder. You can call it Docker-Kubernetes project. Docker-Kubernetes project. That become our our new environment, because your environment is cluttered all over the place. We are not able to know where we are. So we can find a command called mk and then dir. Those are two commands at the same time. All right, clear this. All right, so now let's return back to Taye practice. Seems like you haven't done the right thing because we can see your image. Let's go to Taye practice GitHub repository. I'm not really a fan of having all these files here. I like to go to GitHub because GitHub is specific to the project. This is not the one. And the project is actually Nginx. It has is an Nginx Dynamics. This is not the one. This is why I say don't bring all project to the terminal. You see, this is not the one. The
This
project
Taye
I gave
Kubernetes
you is not.
practice.
That's not the
This,
project
this
I
was
gave.
the one you gave me.
Oh, okay. Dynamics, yes. All right. So now let's start with updated Nginx. Open your updated Nginx. The rules were very simple. Okay, you have that image there. Fine. Let's look at you need to add namespace to this deployment. You need to add a namespace to it. Right now, it doesn't have a namespace. You can add namespace inside the deployment, inside the manifest. Okay. Inside the manifest.
Should I add it or
You can do that, or you can add as you are applying. But for the sake of what is coming next, you should add your namespace inside the manifest. Okay. For the sake of what is coming next. So you go to line 5. Line 5. That's line 4. At the end of line 5, you enter and you put a namespace. And the namespace is whatever namespace you are creating there, I think is Nginx. You go and do the same to the service. And this should become the normal way you are doing things, because we are going to move to automation soon and we don't learn the commands. I'm a little bit worried what you're doing.
say that I should add it to the service?
No. If you listen to my words carefully, they will guide you, not to the service account. A service account is a different kind of resource in the cluster. So if you go and modify the service account, you messed it up. The service account is a different resource in the cluster. I'm saying we add it to the service. What is a service? Do you remember what we define the service as? There is a service account and there is service. What is the difference between the two? Maybe that's where we should start at, because there is a confusion that you're having between the two. So what's the difference between a service account and this and service? Do you remember?
Services. The service is like server.
Service is not a server. Remember, we defined these things in the note.
What is the abstraction layer that
Uh-huh.
exposes it to us outside network and external network?
Exposes what?
The cluster.
The cluster? Uh-uh.
Uh,
What are we exposing
Exposes
here with the service account? Because we need to understand these things. Otherwise, they're going to be very confusing to us. What are we exposing here? And what do we need the service? The service? The service. What you are having an issue understanding, and this is why I said, apart from, of course, what we are covering in the course, is very vital. If you don't understand something in a way that you can be able to explain to me, do not proceed. Because when you proceed, you add a layer of misunderstanding. We have two things in this manifest. And the first one is a deployment that is controlled by the deployment controller. The work of the deployment a controller is to manage the application. And it manages application using other controllers such as the replication set controller. We also use the deployment controller to manage the the deployment strategies such as canary and rolling update. Okay? If you scroll down, you are going to see that we have the replicas so that we can maintain what we call high availability, because replicas is like having more than one servers. And then, of course, if you look down, continue down a little bit. Unfortunately, this one does not have the rolling update, but it should have a deployment strategy, but that doesn't affect it. Then every deployment we do, and it's not just a deployment of anything, but this deployment is Nginx. So we need to expose it to the outside world. And this deployment is in the form of ponds, or what we call containers, and is going to be deployed inside a node. However, it needs to be exposed to the external world, or what we call to the traffic in the internet, so that people can be able to access it and use the service. And the way we expose it is by using a layer called service. Okay? You see that? This is the kind of understanding that I want you to have. So let's scroll down and go to the service. This is now the service that we are using to expose the deployment. And if you look at it, it's very similar. For instance, we are calling it Nginx service because it's attached to the Nginx deployment. App has to be connected with the app that we are exposing, and that app is Nginx. We also state in the kind, which is service. Scroll down. And of course, we are stating the protocol is TCP. We are stating the port is port 80, the target port, and the type of the service, which is the node port. Do you understand this? This is what we are using to expose the Nginx deployment to the traffic outside there on the internet. And that is why we call it the service. Okay?
yes, sir.
So it has its own deployment. And by the way, you can separate it from the from the deployment, but we love to keep it at the deployment so that you can be able to see the labels, the selectors, because they can help you, of course, to match the application with another one. Okay. So it helps us to match the service to the application that we want to be exposed. Are we good?
Yes, sir.
So now we need to add the namespace into the service because as you can see is another deployment just is a deploy it has its own manifest just like the deployment, okay? So we need to add a namespace. Try to read the notes. Of course, I know it's not easy, but you can get better, okay? You can always do better. Namespace. And it has to be in the same namespace that your deployment is in. That's something else to know. But also you can add them manually by saying kubectl, apply, whatever you add the namespace, but that's not always the best way to do it. The best way is to put the namespace inside the manifest, okay? All right, try to move so that we move forward. All right, so now with that one in mind, I want you to tell me what is the use of a service account? What is the use of a service account? What is a service account and why do we need a service account? Because there is difference between a service account and a service. Help me understand that. Uh-huh.
Service accounts man or it manages the
Uh-huh.
mm,
Uh-huh. Keep going. Service account.
it keeps accounts of the
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Keep going. What is a service account? Remember, we just went through it.
accounts of the pods.
The account of the pod is not kept by the account. The count of pod is kept by the replica set controller. Okay. Uh-huh. Replica set controller. So the service account is not gonna be used for that. Uh-huh. So this is why I want to know how do you how do you or what is a service account and what do we use it for? Uh-huh. So what you are missing is very simple, okay? You are missing to understand when I say these things because the way I'm saying them is the easiest way. A service account is used to give Kubernetes resources an identity. And this identity is important for these resources to be able to access and communicate with the Kubernetes API and at the same time have the access to the Kubernetes resources. Okay? So that's the issue because you haven't been able to revise the last recording. So these are the things I want you to make them easy for yourself. Otherwise, getting the concept, when you understand Kubernetes things, you flow. It's so easy. It's usually very easy because it's a repetition. Now, commit the changes.
Okay, and the last recording is not playing. It's saying private video.
Private video. Which one is that? I have to note that. Is it the last one I sent today? Today morning, or the
Think
one
so.
I sent yesterday?
Let me check.
All right. If not, I'm gonna fix it now. It's just I just need to change something small. That of course something that should not worry us. Okay. All right. Let's see. If that is the case. Oh, all right. That's fine. Okay. So go back to your
Yeah.
email. That might be what is affecting you. Kubernetes project involving Docker. All right, that might be what is affecting you. All right, so just hold a minute. Let me fix it, and then you can try again. Because if I say I'm gonna fix it uh, later, it's going to affect you. Let me make sure it's fixed now, and now we're good to go. So we come here, and we're going to come and fix it, okay? All right, so that is Taye. I don't know how you became private. I know is not the best. So make it unlisted. All right, go ahead and try it again, okay? Let's make sure that is good to go. So try it. All right, so it's good to go, okay? All right, good. So awesome. So thank you for letting me know that. Let's go and solve the matter so that then you can come back here. All right, continue with the same. So now, those are the things I want you to understand. So let's go to, you already built the image. So don't worry about that, okay? I'll help you to know how to do it the right way. Don't worry about creating a new one here, okay? Let's first of all just figure out how to edit the repository, okay?
Yes.
Don't worry about coming here to the terminal. Don't worry about the terminal. Return back to the most important thing is not the terminal. The most important thing is the source. Now from here, let's go to the namespace. Let's make sure the namespace is fine. And the way I'm walking you through, this is how you should do everything. Reconciling and checking everything that you are doing to make sure that before you deploy, everything is good to go. Otherwise, if you come here, go back to the terminal is not important because you can change everything here, clone it, and you have everything on the terminal. Okay? All right, so let's look at the namespace and understand when we say a namespace. If somebody was to ask you, can you describe what is a namespace? What would you tell the person? What is a namespace?
Namespace is like a space where
Uh-huh,
you give a particular amount of resources. You allocate it to you- a namespace is where you
uh-huh,
allocate a particular amount of resources to
uh-huh.
a particular space or a particular name.
Yeah. So a namespace is nothing but is just a portion of the cluster that is given to you. Okay. Why do we need to put labels on the namespace? Although it's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. Why? Uh-huh.
identify what's the
Uh-huh. You are guessing
the
yourself too much.
environment.
So all you need is very simple. It's to help you manage, organize, and manage. It is to help you to manage and organize the resources efficiently, specifically when you have more than one teams. Okay? Next, service account. So you see, it's very simple. Make sure you add a namespace. It has a namespace, of course. That's fine. Next, I'm not gonna go to Dockerfile. You already did that. So we go to class. Let's go to the cluster role. Cluster role. The cluster role, not cluster role binding. Explain to me what is a cluster role and why you need it. Uh-huh. Go ahead and explain what is a cluster role and why you need the cluster role, okay?
Cluster role is
Uh-huh.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. What is it? Uh-huh. Continue.
it's the it's like
Uh-huh.
the role, or should I say role?
We have to be
It's like
careful. Uh-huh. You see now, when you go to the interview, you cannot be saying it's like the role. No, 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 no. I want you to understand these things and understand them to your own words. We say that the cluster role one is a cluster-based resource. All these are resources and is managed by what we call the cluster role controller. Now, the work of the cluster role is to create permissions that can be assigned to a given cluster, to a given service account, can be assigned to a service account, can be assigned to a user, can be assigned to a group of users, okay?
yes, sir.
A cluster role contains permissions, and these permissions are in the form of verbs. Verbs are do words, such as get, list, watch. Those are permissions. And they are usually going, of course, to have what we call a scope resource, because we want them to be limited to a certain scope of resource to minimize the attack. So this cluster role is a resource scope based. It means that it's only used to get to config maps. Okay?
Yes, sir.
It's only used to get to config maps. Now, it is given the person that will be assigned to it permission to get, list, and watch. And these are what we call normal permissions. They don't have the privileges. However, if we want to give higher elevated permissions that have higher privileges, or what we like to call escalated privileges, we can give privileges like create, delete, modify. Okay?
Yes, sir.
That become a high privilege. Okay? So the scope of this cluster role is a scope to a config map. So it's technically tied to one resource, and that one resource is a config map. Next, cluster role binding. Cluster role binding. What is it? Why do we need it? Cluster role binding. Cluster role binding. Why do we need it? Because if you don't understand why, this is what I always tell students. Don't just cram this. Understand why. Hey, cluster role binding. What is it? And why do I need it? Those should always be the two questions you ask yourself. What is a service account? Why do I need it? If you understand that, you'll never be confused about this. So let's go to cluster role binding. First of all, tell me what it is and why do you need it?
So
Huh?
it's to bind the
Mhm.
role that that is given to the cluster.
Okay, say it again. There are words I did not hear.
It's
Huh? There are some words I'm missing from you. There are some words I'm not hearing.
it's
Uh-huh.
it gives permission to the
Yeah, you see now in the interview, you cannot take that much time because you already said you are somebody with experience. So we can't do that. So we have to know these things at the fingertips. So a cluster row binding is used to bind the cluster row that we created to a specific user service account or group. Okay. In this case, we are binding it to a service account. Can you see? You see that? Line 10. So now it's like the way you can create a policy or create a permission. Then, of course, you come back here and you bind this permission to somebody. So the cluster row, of course, is helping us to do that. We are able to bind those. The cluster row, of course, give us permission to the entire cluster. And of course, we use the cluster row binding to bind those permission to a specific person, specific service account, a specific group. And of course, you have to know one thing that is very special, which you don't have in this manifest. A cluster row binding is specific to a namespace, but the cluster row is not specific to a namespace. You get those two differences?
cluster is not specific.
Cluster row is not specific to a namespace. It's for the entire cluster. But cluster row binding is specific to a given namespace. Okay? So we have to add a namespace to this.
That's okay.
Yeah, we must add the name space. So let's check out the cluster row to make sure we don't have, in the cluster row, we are not supposed to have a namespace. Let's go to the cluster row to make sure we don't have a namespace. All right, that's good. All right, so now we're going to clone this repository. We're going to clone this repository. Oh, we have one item. Yes. All right. Config map. Config map also need to be name based. It must be in the in a namespace. It can't just be something floating in the cluster. It need to be part of a namespace. All right. Now, before you move forward, I want to ask you a specific question. What is a config map, and why do you need a config map?
Config
Huh?
map is
Good.
the it's like sorry, it's the configuration
Mhm,
that's the that is it's, it's like a set of instruction
mhm.
for configuration.
Say it again.
Figmap is a set of instruction for the configuration.
Yes, but is not that's not how we defined it. We say that configuration file is used, config map is used to store configuration data that are used to change the behavior of the application, isn't it? If you look at this case, we have a namespace. Of course, we have it. We have the content. And what we are doing here, you see the labels are used to help the manifest to connect to the app, to know which app to which app is going to be accessing this config map. And in this case, the app is Nginx, okay? This is why we put labels. Labels are all over so that we can label, of course, the app that is connected to this, that is going to be accessing or is connected to this config map, okay? So
So
now this is the content. Of course, this content is going to be to be injected into the Nginx container. And from there, of course, what is going to happen is that we can change this dynamically if we come and make changes, okay? So now you have to go back and revise this, but let's go to the updated Nginx deployment. There is something uh, I want you to see. All right, you can see the label is Nginx. You scroll down. I want you to see how we mount the config map. So if you can look at line 25, you can see volume mount, Nginx content. We have a mountain path. We have the sub path. Of course, that is the path, the sub path. The volume is in the config map, Nginx content volume. That is just the name. And of course, we have the name of the config map. Okay.
yes, sir.
So now we go ahead and clone this. We're going to clone this and we go and put it in in the in the folder or directory that we just created. And the reason we are putting it in the directory that we created in the Kubernetes is because we want to separate our work. Because if we want to go back to this repository, we can go back to that directory, okay? The one that you just created.
This is the one I just created.
I see you're being confused by what you're using on your left-hand side, and of course, what you're using on the right-hand side. The best thing to do always when you join the cluster is to run the simple command called ls. Because when you
I
run
want to
ls, it helps you to see what you have.
I
Instead of
want to
you having,
minimize
uh-huh.
I want to hide all these things.
To hide them, you have to clean up your environment. There is nothing you can do there except cleaning up your environment. And I'll suggest you create folders instead of just installing the files, because these files you have to delete them manually. Okay? And before you run the cd command, always run the command ls, because what are you cding into? It's always good to have the full picture before you do anything, because that help you to know the folder that you want to cd into, isn't it?
Folder.
Mhm. Yeah, you can do that, which is fine, but try to clean up your environment is all over the place, okay? You cannot be typing all of it. Try to use shortcuts.
I already have Docker somewhere, so
All right, that's fine. So you go ahead and you clone the repository into that. So the reason we are doing this is just to create a new environment. It's not because we are doing this because this is how you are supposed to do it. It's just to make sure that your work is separated from the rest of the work, because you have so many repositories that we don't even know what they are doing there. And we want to have a clean slate. Okay. All right. You go ahead and run ls. Don't worry about the left hand side. Just focus on the terminal, okay? Just the terminal. Don't worry about what is on your left hand side, because at this point you have so many things and it's a little bit confusing, okay? Continue. Just on the terminal. Don't worry about the things on the left. All right, so we have that. So now, what you need to do is to go back and apply the manifest. So you have all these manifests here, okay? So you're
yes.
going to apply all of them. You start with a namespace. You go to service account. After service account, you go to cluster row. You go to cluster row binding. You do the deploy. You do the config map, and then you do the deployment. Okay. Did you get the way you are going to deploy them?
Don't get you will deploy them.
Uh, do you understand what we are doing?
Said, do I get you will deploy them?
Yeah, you have to deploy them in a format.
Nginx.
So because you can deploy and updated, although you can deploy them in any format you want, but just go ahead and deploy them. But the easiest way would be to start with a namespace. You go to service account, you go
Oh,
to
default.
the format or the way to follow to be able to update to you know to apply them. Mhm.
Is it this
Okay.
one?
Yeah, you can use that. You can go with that. That's fine. You can deploy them that way. That's fine. You just have to deploy them using a specific format, okay? All right, let's try to move and deploy them. Uh, okay. Seems like you have the Nginx there, which is fine. But still, you can deploy it. It's not gonna cost anything.
Can deploy it in this. Nginx.
I mean, what is the name of your namespace?
Nginx.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, you can deploy it or you can just go and change it. Or as far as the namespace is there, you can use it or you can because whether you deploy the manifest, these manifests are declarative. So as far it doesn't matter, you can run it a million times, it's still fine. Okay, so it won't have any impact at all. Mhm.
I think this thing is here.
So, all right, go ahead and get the deployment in the namespace. All right, we have one. Let's get the service. Okay. Go change the service. You can change the service into a load balancer. Change the service to a load balancer. All right. All right, clear this. Let's see. I believe it should be pending. All right, that's perfectly fine. Let's get what else do we need? All right, let's wait for the service to be created. All right, check the service. All right, so go and get let's expose. Go get the IP. All right, so that's what we have. So go make a change in the config map and let's see what happened. Go to the config map and just make the change. Instead of you must read 3 chapters, let's say 5 chapters. Just the 5 chapters. Instead of 3, we say 5. Just save it. All right, so let's go on the terminal and let's check to see whether cut the config map. Let's make sure the changes have been deployed. Okay, 5 chapters. All right, clear this. All right. So let's go back to the browser where we put the service, where we are exposing the service. Let's restart and see what happened. All right.
Do I have to apply it?
Huh?
Do I have to apply it?
No, you don't need to apply it because it's supposed to take the changes dynamically, okay? So just rerun the IP address again. Let's see whether those changes are there. If not, you still have some things to do and to check. Well, yes, of course, if you rerun it and you do kubectl or rollout update, it's gonna take the changes. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is that it should be able to take these changes all by itself. Okay. Try to refresh. Let's see where the changes are taken. So it means that there is still some work to do, but that's fine. I mean, what I want you to understand is that it should be able to take these changes without you having to reapply them. Okay? Is it? Because no. That's not how it's supposed to do. Go back to the terminal and reapply. Do kubectl apply kube config. Reapply the config again. I'm sure if you do that, it should notice the changes because right now it's not. All right. So clear this. Now let's go back to the browser and let's check whether we have whether the changes have been consumed. Oh, it's still saying must read 3 chapters. I'm expecting it to pull those changes and say 5 chapters, okay? All right, should be 5, isn't it?
Okay.
So I don't know why it's not picking the changes. Try again, one more time. One more time. No, you don't need to do that twice. You just need to check the IP address to see whether the changes have been the IP address to make sure those changes have come. All right, so nothing. So there is still something is not able to pick, but that was the main reason we wanted this project. We wanted to make sure that those changes do come here, okay? But they are not
Yes.
coming, which means something to be done, but it's okay at this point. All you need to know is how that the reason you are creating, building a new image, and of course adding those scripts was to be able to get these changes automatically, okay? So let's go to your repository. There is a new project you're going to work in for tomorrow. And now I want you to check for a new repository called Prometheus. Prometheus is part of the repositories that I shared. Prometheus, I think that is the one. Check it out. Prometheus Grafana, yes, that one. So this is a project you are going to work on. Of course, we talked about Prometheus and Grafana, and then of course we said about the metrics. They are very good in scraping the metrics. Now, how do you go about this? You're going to open install Prometheus and Grafana. Those are nodes. Open them. Install Prometheus and Grafana stack. It's gonna be a note. So scroll down. You're going to read the notes. You don't have to worry too much. You should know that. You scroll down. Now, at this point, you're going to see exactly Prometheus. You keep going. Going. Yes, so now we start from there. So you have to make sure go up a little bit. So everything you see with a pound sign in front is a command. Help version is a command you're going to run on your terminal. So you're gonna follow this note step by step. Otherwise, you skip one step, you don't get the result. So we keep going. So now this is, hey, you're moving too fast, which can affect you. Try to move slowly because if you miss one item, In fact, what I'm testing you here is how to read. I'm not really testing you anything else, but to read step by step and know how to execute the instruction. So keep going down. So you read, of course, you know how to do that. You move on to the next one. Just follow instruction. It's telling you to click. If it's telling you to click, you click on it. You keep going. You just read, then you keep on going. Now it will give you the commands. So this command, you're gonna run them until you see the project. So this is your project for tomorrow. Come with it ready. It's very easy. Know what is a Helm, know why we use Helm, know what is Prometheus stack, know what it is for, why we need it. It's called a Prometheus operator for a reason. Do some research, understand why you need it, go through it, look at how we expose services, look at everything. By the time you come tomorrow, have your Prometheus with you working, okay?
Yes, sir.
If you get stuck, no problem. But I want you to do these things by yourself. And when you are copying this command, be careful. Don't copy the pound sign. All these you see pound sign, these are commands. You see? That's what you'll be running. Otherwise, all you need is to follow my directions. Don't worry about anything else. And of course, you'll be able to do the project. Otherwise, Prometheus and Grafana are very important. Just know what is Prometheus, just know what is Grafana. It's the same concept as what we did in the CI/CD pipeline. They are doing the same thing. They are here because they want to collect the metrics. But again, we are adding what we call the Helm, of course, the Helm chart, and of course, we are adding an operator, okay? So when you come tomorrow, there are 4 things I want you to know. Write them down because they are very vital. Number 1, I want you to know why we need Prometheus in our environment, okay? In the Kubernetes. Second, why do we need Grafana, okay? Number 3, why do we need Prometheus operator? Why do we need Prometheus operator, okay? And number 4, why do we need Helm? Helm and Helm chart, okay? You get those?
Why we need Prometheus, Grafana,
Uh-huh,
Prometheus operator.
uh-huh. Helm and Helm chart, okay? That's all. And have this project done. So by the time I see you tomorrow, I expect you should have the Prometheus and Grafana running in the cluster, okay?
Yes, sir. Helm and Helm
As
charts.
Helm chart and Helm. Your work is to do research, and by the way, it's covered in the notes, okay? So you
Okay.
are knowing Prometheus, Grafana, Prometheus operators, Helm and chart, Helm and Helm chart. They are related, okay?
Yes, sir.
They are cousins, Helm and Helm chart. Then, of course, you have Prometheus operator, you have Grafana and Prometheus, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, work on them. Let's keep going.
Yes.
Okay.
So, thank you.